All right.
Yeah.
How's it going, Rob?
Who's this man? It's going very well, man. Thanks for coming back on the show. I appreciate it. Everyone's happy to see you.
No, always a pleasure to win the approval of Laurentian Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've curated a couple of like some videos that we can look at with everybody and kind of react to. We're doing some react content. That'll be fun.
Hmm.
Do you want to do like like a react face for the YouTube clip? Like a
Like that?
yes, yeah, exactly like that.
Like, am I supposed to react with shock?
I guess that's usually what you see when you go on YouTube. Like no matter what it is, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we got some separatist content that I've curated is a strong word. I was just watching separatist videos as one does when you're in my line of work, and I thought some might be kind of funny because the girlies are fighting, Rob.
yeah. Well, Jeremy, like before we even get into it, can you just break down? Because like I know a little bit about this. Like it's confusing to me as someone that's not from Alberta. You know, there's people in the chat, people from the USA and from around the world that are maybe not as plugged into the absolute insanity going on in Alberta right now. Do you think you can just give us a little overview of like what the last couple of months have been like in Alberta with the
Yeah,
referendum that wasn't a referendum and like
well,
all
I'm
kinds
calling
of
it a
stuff going on? Why don't
referendum
you give us the
within
skinny?
a referendum. Okay, so I'm going to try and be succinct, which I think viewers know is something I struggle with. But
It's okay.
basically, we have this premier, Danielle Smith, former ivermectin podcaster, Bitcoin enthusiast, Jordan Peterson, acolyte, who became our premier in 2022. And um,
She was a radio host, right?
she was, yes,
Yeah.
on course, the Danielle Smith show, where she interviewed, one of the authors of the Great Barrington Declaration, and some a lot of separatists actually. She had them on, and this was like mainstream talk radio in Calgary, right?
Yeah.
And so,
We should be on talk
basically,
radio.
I should be
Why?
on talk radio.
I think we.
Good, yeah. What
Why
the
doesn't
hell?
anyone pay us to do that? I got to be out over here scrounging for subs on
I
Twitch.
mean, Twitch kind of is the new talk radio, though,
Yeah,
right?
with way less money though.
Yeah, that's true. Like she got paid well. But anyways, she quit because of woke in
Yeah.
2021. And this was because advertisers, she worked for Chorus, which was a mainstream broadcaster in Canada. They own Global, the TV network, and a bunch of radio affiliates across the country. And she got some heat from advertisers for having on these like COVID cranks, for tweeting that hydroxychloroquine is 100% surefire cure for COVID. Those types of things. And she got like lightly reprimanded, was able to continue hosting a daily call-in radio show. But she decided to quit. Definitely shades of Barry Weiss there. I mean,
Yeah.
even when she announced she was quitting, she talked about the New York Times and how, the Twitter mob silenced Senator Tom Cotton and the New York Times opinion editor, James Bennett. And so she quits and just goes headfirst into content creation. And she's very talented broadcaster, not a bad writer either. And she writes this newsletter where she's talking about crypto and how we can achieve independent Alberta through cryptocurrency. She's hosting like a Bitcoin conference, and so she mounts her political comeback. She had a huge flame out like a decade ago when she was the leader of this sort of right wing populist upstart Wild Rose Party. Um, and she was sort of written off as dead. But of course, like all failed right wing politicians in Canada, she found a natural home in the Canadian media as a Calgary
Yes.
Herald columnist, as well as a radio host. And I think she really she's doing live streams for the Western Standard. She's doing a podcast for the Fraser Institute, which is where she interned when she was in university. She actually starts social media page at locals.com, which is a website founded by Dave Rubin, sort of like a conservative intellectual, I
Yeah,
guess
of
you could say.
course. She really has an eye for
Yeah, yeah,
talent, obviously.
yeah. Well, um, in some ways she does, but
Yeah.
anyways, and sort of just without being able to just say whatever she wants without like scrutiny from the elites in the C-suite. And I think it radicalizes her both on the pandemic stuff. She's talking about, well, maybe because the vaccine doesn't actually prevent COVID, we should actually make people who are vaccinated quarantine, that type of stuff. When she COVID, she does like a video of her like doing ivermectin. Really good content creation. And so that's one part of her political comeback, because Jason Kenney, her predecessor, who's like an establishment, like neoliberal, neoconservative kind of guy who I wrote a book about, was seen as too by the sort of radicalized rural religious reactionary party base that he'd riled up. They saw him as they imposed any COVID restrictions at all,
Yeah.
was seen as anathema to this sort of let her rip attitude towards the pandemic.
That
And
was
so,
really a fascinating COVID subplot too, of guys like Jason Kenney and like Ryan Pallister as well was like this, who were like they would get these like national or headlines elsewhere. If we look at these sensible conservatives enacting these like
yeah, I mean,
COVID
Ford
measures.
is the child of that, really.
Yeah,
Like
but
a lot of people
he's absorbed the controversy that generates on the right. But it's interesting how like these really right wing constituencies that people like Jason Kenney, very very conservative, had cultivated, turned on these guys instantly for basically having basic like public health measures put in place during this global
right.
pandemic.
And in Alberta, so there's two sides to that. There's the COVID, but there's also the Alberta separatist stuff. You could say the Western grievance politics that Kenny really went to the edge of doing, without actually calling for independence. I mean, this guy had just been minister of the crown, and a proud minister of the crown in Stephen Harper's government. But there is this sense, largely cultivated by the media and the oil and gas industry, that Alberta, which is the richest province in Canada by every metric, is actually being hard done by. I mean, this Alberta is, I mean, fundamentally rooted in oil and gas, right? Like that's where it comes. That is it's based on. Now there are all these cultural grievances, some very ugly cultural grievances sort of layered on top of it. But at the end of the day, Alberta separatism is all about how we have a God-given right to drill as much oil as the mostly American-owned big oil companies that dominate the tar sands see fit. And these Eastern elites are, involved in the same conspiracy that made us lock down for COVID, even though Alberta never actually had a lockdown in the same way Ontario or Quebec did. Are trying to constrain oil and gas production, right? And so you really try to appeal to people who thought this way without going all the way, right? And independence. So Smith comes, and so there's all these COVID grievances, and there's a huge overlap between sort of the Freedom Convoy crowd and this Alberta separatist crowd,
Oh, sure.
because they see Alberta as sort of the front line against the globalists who want us to stop drilling for oil at some point in the future, who want to impose public health restrictions and have everyone vaccinated, want to make people trans, right? It all kind of comes together into
All the
this
good stuff.
like conspiracy theory smoothie, right?
Yeah. Well, and interestingly, like it seems like there's, and we're going to this, I'm sure, but evidence that there's big foreign money backing both of these movements, and we can get into maybe why that is. But.
Yeah. I mean, I always, I think I mean, there is foreign money, absolutely. I mean, we don't know with the separatists because they haven't had to disclose their finances yet. Both the sort of referendum petition campaign, Stay Free Alberta, and then all these third-party advertisers that are popping up. And yeah, so anyway, Smith comes to power on these sort of twin grievances of the pandemic and the sort of Alberta persecution narrative. And these are the people who like brought her to power, and they got rid of Kenny and they brought her to power, and she's beholden to them. And I think major is in being able to channel their grievances and do so in a way where it's palatable to like your average center right person
Okay.
who's more of like an establishment conservative who lives in Calgary and just wants lower taxes, right? And so the way that she's handled this independence referendum that we're sort of having in October is through an arm's length distance. So she changed the rules of citizen initiated referendums twice to make it easier for the separatists to mobilize and get their question on the ballot. It was twice shut down in court because of First Nations are opposed to separatism because as Canada has been for First Nations people, they do have in Alberta, not so much where you live, Rob, but they have treaties, right? Alberta's all treaty land with First Nations, and treaties give them a legal instrument to use in court that would be entirely absent in independent Alberta. And basically, Smith's plan was let the separatists mobilize. And a lot of these separatists, again, Mitch Sylvester, sort of the big separatist leader in Alberta, the Stay Free Alberta guy, Alberta Prosperity Project, is also the president of a UCP constituency association in a small town called Bonnyville, just like north of Edmonton, I believe. And he got an award at their convention last year for being the top fundraiser, right? So they do have significant sway within the party. And so first time around, Smith lowered the threshold for collecting signatures for a constitutional referendum and gave petitioners a month extra to collect those signatures, right? And this was right after the federal election, which she had been warning, since Carney became prime minister. It's like, if you get rid of all these climate policies that Trudeau imposed, that's called the 9 bad laws, you're going to have an unprecedented national unity crisis.
Yeah.
And
Carney seems like he's not maybe 100% obliging, but he's certainly been
75%.
Open to doing exactly that.
Yeah, and even so there's still a tanker ban on the north coast of BC, but they're also now planning to build a pipeline to the north coast of BC and to exempt, obviously, that pipeline's products from the tanker ban. However, the feds, I think, would prefer to do a southern route to like Vancouver area because then they don't have to worry about dealing with the tanker ban. But we'll see what happens there. So the first thing last year is what Smith does. Yeah. So she makes it easier to get a referendum on the ballot. So the separatists but the separatists apply to start collecting signatures for their petition. And the chief electoral officers like, hold on a second. In the Citizen Initiative Act, which Jason Kenney introduced, there's a provision that says you can't petition for something that would be unconstitutional if realized. So the chief electoral officer is like, I better refer to this to court to find out, like, to see, can this question court has hearings. First Nations, a bunch of First Nations join on the side of the chief electoral officer. The Alberta government joins on the side of the separatists, which is a common thread. This litigation is the separatists and the government of Alberta are on the same side. And while the Alberta government says, well, no, I support Alberta's sovereignty within the United Canada is Danielle Smith's sort of catchphrase, right? And it allows her sort of, say, I support Alberta sovereignty to the separatist set and say, well, I support the United Canada to the federalist set, right? So basically the judge is writing his ruling on this, and then the Alberta government passes legislation that removes the part of the Citizens Initiative Act that says you can't have citizen initiatives on unconstitutional questions from the act, and explicitly says all court challenges that are underway regarding the old acts are kibosh, essentially. And so they introduced the legislation, but it's not passed yet. So the judge writes an expedited ruling that's like, No, like you actually need to consult with First Nations, right? Because in Canada, there's a well-established duty to consult with First Nations on things that would impact their treaty rights. So their ability to engage in traditional practices like hunting and trapping and fishing and be able to sort of live on the land, which the treaties sort of promise to balance against industrial development and settlement. The judge is like, you can't do that. He writes a scathing addendum that's like, you're trying to change the rules, in the middle of the race. This is outrageous, blah, blah, blah. But, passes this legislation that essentially makes his ruling moot. So then the separatists, foreseeing that it's going to get challenged in court again, basically saying you approved the same question that was already rejected. They reword their slightly, and then submit to the chief electoral officer. He approves it this time. They're able to go out, start collecting signatures. The First Nations again challenging in court: Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, Athabasca Chippewa First Nation, and the Blackfoot Confederacy, which are three First Nations in southern Alberta, who actually usually tend to be quite conservative. They challenge it in court, and they win. And the separatists claim that they've gotten 300,000 signatures. But Athabasca Chippewa and Blackfoot, which made similar arguments, Sturgeon Lake made different arguments. It was Athabasca Chippewa and the Blackfoot Confederacy whose arguments won the day, which was essentially, this is the same petition that was already rejected in court for being unconstitutional. The chief electoral officer should have never approved it. And the provincial government had an obligation to consult with First Nations before allowing a process to be set in motion that would call their treaty rights into question, is the gist of it.
Okay.
And so Danielle Smith comes out and says, this is an anti-democratic decision from a Trudeau-appointed judge. This, is constraining the will of hundreds of thousands of Albertans, and I'm going to appeal it in court, again, with the separatist organization. And then she said, in the meantime, because we've already got some referendums lined up for October, which are government initiated, that are are things that align with the separatists, but aren't separatism, right? So there are like 5 questions on degrees of restrictions on immigrants' abilities to access social. And then there's like 4 constitutional questions about like the Canadian Constitution that Alberta has no control over, like whether we should abolish the unelected Senate. And whether provinces should be able to keep funding for federal programs, even if they don't want to implement those programs. That just will serve as further points of, agitation with the feds. And so Smith, what he did was add to the ballot an indirect question, because you can't ask the direct question, right? The court ruled that. No, you have to consult with First Nations before you ask, should Alberta become an independent country? Because they signed the treaties with the Crown. Alberta didn't, right? And Alberta, in this relationship, is just a proxy for the Crown, right? In terms of the duty to consult. So it basically asks, should Alberta remain in Canada? Option A, it's not a yes or no question. Option B, should the Alberta government initiate the process enshrined in the Constitution to have a future referendum on independence, right? So it's a referendum on whether to have a referendum, which is, I think, a clever way for her, because I think she did want to have independence on the ballot as a citizen initiative rather than her own initiative. But she literally can't do that. So she has these 10 other questions that align with what the separatists want. If you their economic, their fiscal plan or whatever, and I mean, the dollar amounts you can just disregard entirely. It's all made up. Yeah. But I mean, they want to do like 100,000 deportations in like within 3 years if Alberta becomes independent, right? She's sort of doing this from an arm's length approach, is empowering these separatists. And I think one thing, and sorry, go ahead, Rob, I'll let you ask the question.
Oh, well, no, I do find it, because we talked about the ways he got kind of like devoured by this like really reactionary conservative constituency that he was really courting for all these years. And it's been kind of fascinating seeing her kind of try to do this delicate dance where she signals to these groups that she is one of them. And like you said, like they're the ones that put her in that position. So she has to kind of like show that she's doing these things to advance their agenda while simultaneously kind of trying to maintain a kind of plausible deniability. I think she said the other day that's like, I would vote no in this kind of referendum, but but it's because they want to advance like what the people want, and that's part of democracy, and kind of trying to speak out of both sides of her mouth about that. And it's fascinating to see whether that's going to be effective to convince these people that she is on their side. I know in some of the content that you've been sending me, it seems like there's a lot of doubt and skepticism in this like separatist community that she is going to be working for their agenda at all. And it's going to be interesting to see whether someone like her, even with her like real conservative bona fides with these exact communities, ends up getting devoured in the same way that someone like a Jason Kenney did, or whether she's going to be able to successfully kind of jujitsu her way out of that.
I think it's already a big separatist voices. So Milvester, who I mentioned before, who's like a gun shop owner, who was sort of radicalized by the pandemic, and the lawyer that has been representing him in court, Jeffrey Rath, who is, I'll just say, owes some First Nations a lot of money. I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
They were furious, right? They were saying exactly, this is just like Kenney during the pandemic. Yeah. She's taking us for granted. She's using us, which of course is true. She was always using you, dummies. Yeah. Like, so is Kenney. But I think Kenney, a big difference, has certain ideological rigidity and arrogance to him. Near the end of his premiership audio leaked to the CBC of just being like, look, I don't even need this job. I could just leave and, collect money elsewhere. But I'm doing it out of a sense of duty because I don't want to see my party taken over by these lunatics and extremists. And that I think, helped, people mobilize against him and mobilize behind Smith, who is coming out and saying, these people aren't lunatics or extremists. They're people who are hurting and we need to listen to them. And because Smith is very good at making certain people who advantageous for her to do so feel heard and listened and for
I see the first time in their lives, right? They're following for those old liberal tricks. They feel seen and heard.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. I mean, Bill Clinton was great at that too, right? I
feel your pain.
Right, exactly. So now a lot of the separatists are mad with her. So Sylvester and Rath were like, we need to get rid of her. Sylvester, of course, has a lot of pull within the party. He was telling Jason Markusoff at CBC that, we're gonna organize to get a meeting to organize an early leadership review. Or we're going to humiliate her by organizing a vote to declare the UCP as a separatist party. But more recent weeks, he seems to have calmed down and doesn't want to do that because she is their best shot. She's their only shot at getting what they want, not just in terms of independence, but the actual sort of state that the separatists envision, right? She's doing that anyways, right? It really is rather than ends, right? And I think the real danger, Matthew Wildcat, a scholar of Native studies at the University of Alberta, was on the Breach podcast recently. And I don't remember if he said this on the podcast, but he said to me for a story I wrote for the Breach, is that actually the danger of Alberta independence isn't independence, it's the separatist movement and it being empowered, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about that from the perspective of Indigenous rights, but it also applies to
you mentioned the deportations that they're planning. This is not just based about economic populism. This is a movement that's based in a lot of demographic shifts that have been going on in Alberta and elsewhere, and it's based in this kind of very reactionary cultural grievance politics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think at its core, it's extractive populism, right?
Yeah,
that's where it comes from. And so any sense of dislocation is channeled into oil and gas. And Alberta is the oil and gas industry. And we are the people. And whether you're a CEO of an big oil and gas company that doesn't even live in Alberta, or you're working a pump jack in I don't know, Sturgeon County or wherever. Like, we are
Yeah.
the people, we're united, and we together are being pressed by these globalists that Carney is, I mean, the perfect embodiment
Oh,
of,
of
as was
course. Yeah.
Trudeau.
He's
And
absolutely one of those people. The
yeah,
Davos people, his famous speech at Davos a couple months ago. He's like almost a caricature of exact type of person, way more than Trudeau ever was.
yeah, that's why I thought I wrote a piece for the Toronto Star during the Liberal leadership race when it was like him and Freeland essentially, and I was like, you couldn't have two candidates more typecast to run against Polyev, and I didn't anticipate how Polyev fuck himself, as did Trump and as did Smith, right? Because she went on Breitbart and was like, yeah, Polyev's your guy in Canada. Like,
Yeah.
and she boasted about using her contacts in the administration to say, don't do any tariffs during the election because that'll help the liberals. And then she like disappeared. She was sent on some trade mission to Asia for a couple weeks, so
Yeah. Yeah.
she can be heard from.
No, but it's
Um,
interesting talking about like I don't know. I don't think people outside of Alberta truly like fully internalize the way that like the oil and gas industry is almost like it's like really is like a Petros, like it is almost like a national religion, like a state religion in Alberta,
yeah,
in ways that I think people from that are not in the province can't fully wrap their minds around. But the way that it's a driver of like asset of political life is interesting and kind of unique.
yeah, because it's tied to economics. It's also like culturally, like traditional family structures where like the man, works in oil and gas, the mom, stays at home, or maybe, um, you know, works somewhere else.
Yeah, and
Right.
as
There
we've noted
is the,
before too, no one wants to ever do anything about the like foreign-owned oil companies that fuck over workers regularly. Everyone just wants to focus on like these wacko conspiracy theories and these obsessions with family values and white replacement and all this shit. But no one has the same energy whatsoever for the actual companies who are not Canadian that do a lot of damage to these very people in these very communities that have made the oil and gas industry like their entire personalities and their entire lives.
yeah, yeah, precisely. And that's where Smith, the separatist, corporate Calgary, which, doesn't, I mean, the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, their president, Deb Yedlin, who's like a fantastic moron. I mean, she's come out strongly against not just separatism, but how all this talk about separatism is bad for like investor certainty. But she definitely votes UCP, like without a question. She's going to vote for Smith,
Yeah.
I 99% sure, you know, oil, the oil and gas companies, big oil, I mean, they're nothing if not pragmatic. And I think, they're taking a wait and see approach because this is for them. Right.
Yeah.
And, the smaller companies that are, that are pragmatic, and because they just want to drill bang for the future or anything. Right. And so it's sort of extractive populism is what ties corporate Calgary, the sort of religious rural reactionaries that are, make up the sort of foot soldiers of the separatist movement, and Danielle Smith, right, and Mark Carney, for that, right, who is, I don't, people say, oh, he's being duped, or he's capitulating, or some people say he's playing 3D chess. No, he's an equalness.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't said, if we look more broadly at like the assault on labor rights, right? The government here used the notwithstanding clause to order teachers back to work. We're on a perfectly legal, the government was just refusing to negotiate in good faith, and they just ordered them back to work by suspending the right to freedom of association, which the Supreme Court has ruled does apply to the right to be a union member and to go on strike. And of course, trans rights too. I mean,
Yeah.
they invoked it 3 times. Their anti-trans laws, were being challenged in court, and they couldn't make a coherent argument about why they were necessary. So they just used notwithstanding clause. Smith mused about using notwithstanding clause to get the independence question on the referendum, but I think as people in her inner circle were quick to point out to her that notwithstanding clause is for charter rights, not indigenous rights, right? Aboriginal rights, as they're called in the Constitution, which is a separate section of the charter, right?
Yeah.
So you can't do that. So we're literally tied. And so the divide among separatists are for the smarter ones who appreciate that and see this really as an opportunity, sort of as a first round, a first hurdle to cross. Before they get to the real referendum,
Sure.
at some point down the road. And the people who are like, Danielle Smith is committing treason and, we should lock her up, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's the fault line of separatists, right? Between people who are like, yeah, Danielle's not doing everything we want her to do, but who is going to do more for us and be able to do so while getting elected? And there's no one. There's no one who's right. I mean, he is a very talented politician, and I can't think of anyone else who can sell what she's doing like she's doing it. Now, mind you, there's also some gerrymandering underway, which,
Okay.
may make it easier for Smith to pivot more into the separatist stuff because we'll see what happens. That's a whole other thing. Basically, they want to like carve up Calgary into like a dozen like urban rural hybrid ridings, which would just, because the NDP actually have a majority of seats in Calgary right now. And that would get rid of most of their seats there. And that would, solidify UCP rule.
That's like the last remaining stronghold, like of the NDP currently.
Edmonton is. Edmonton bother with because it was Redmonton back when the Liberals were the official opposition, right? It was called Redmonton because there was just this sea of red. And then the PCs dominated Calgary and rural, and then the Wild Rose came in and sort of clawed back some of Calgary and rural from the PCs, which eventually led to the NDP coming to power. So that's why I think that stage for sort of the infighting among separatists, right, is you got some people like Unacceptable Fringe, who his name is he comes out of the convoy Coots blockades movement, who is saying it's funny. I figured a video we have to watch better because we can sort of go into it more.
Sure, we don't need to watch the entire 15 minutes of that character or whatever.
Well, I think the Berta proud guy, Berta, the king of like separatist content, because he's just a guy, right? He's just a guy who like loves AI, loves oil and gas, and just wants Alberta to be strong. And he's more sort of amenable to, I think, what Smith is doing and more understanding. So maybe, do you want to throw on Unacceptable Fringe, see his reaction to sort of Smith's maneuver?
Just before we do that, I had a question from the chat from Jay in the chat who asks, you asked Jeremy about the leak of the electoral rolls and how they were possibly used by the separatists. Do you just want to explain to people that whole situation?
You mean the story?
And I'll call up the video.
Story, you mean the story I broke that didn't get much. I got a little. Andrew Coyne linked it to it. Famous normal opinion haver, Andrew Coyne, but not the Globe's reporting team in Alberta. They like to pretend I don't exist, which whatever.
Of course,
So basically, what happens is David Parker. So David Parker, you remember how I said Smith really came to power on riding this wave of this movement that was against COVID restrictions and wanted to challenge the feds more. The separatists essentially. So Take Back Alberta sort of were the big movement mobilizing around the former. Very focused on sort of public health restrictions and privatizing healthcare and also voting tabulators. That was also a big thing for them that Smith banned, which means it takes a lot longer to hear election results here in Alberta now. So that was led by a guy named David Parker, who actually worked for an organization called the Modern Miracle Network, which was sort of this like grassroots, like oil and gas advocacy group that felt like big oil was being too conciliatory towards, sort of, the climate crowd, the globalists, and that they needed to do a better job sort of telling their own story. He also worked for Jason Kenney, for a while, Aaron O'Toole, and it was, the pandemic sort of radicalized him, as it did for a lot of these people. And he started this organization, Take Back Alberta. But David Parker has a problem. Well, first of all, Take Back Alberta essentially achieved all its goals after the 2023 election when Smith won and the NDP lost. She's dismantling the public healthcare system. She bans voting tabulators. Um, you know, and Parker just can't stop posting. Like
Yeah.
I've never seen a man like him.
He's got the posting illness.
And Daniel Smith like went to his wedding. I don't know if they were ever actually close or if their friendship was more just like political. I suspect it's the latter, but she went to his wedding in like summer of 2023. And then, Parker, I mean, Smith's chief of staff, Rob Anderson, free Alberta Rob on Twitter, which is a great handle that
Yeah.
sorry, Rob, you took it first.
The only one we're gonna have to fight like in Highlander.
But Free Alberta Rob, the mainstream media and liberals, like common enemies. Parker was going after Polyev and other like conservatives. He basically he tweeted an insinuation that Pierre Polyev was cheating on his wife with his ex-girlfriend who was also running his campaign, Jenny Byrne, and Smith was like, yeah, I told him to delete his account and to get help. And Parker, was just like, never. And so he's kind of washed. And then he being investigated by Elections Alberta for a bunch of events that Take Back Alberta did in the lead up to the 2023 election, where they were explicitly trying to get people to vote UCP, which is their right to do, but they were registered as a third-party advertiser and they didn't disclose any fundraising or expenses. So Parker, and so Parker's washed, right? And so he comes back. He sees that the separatist movement is gaining steam because Smith has sort of, for the most part, laid out the red carpet for them. And he's like, I have this new initiative called the Centurion Project. And what it is essentially is like a voter ID app that was based on technology used in Michigan, that the Trump campaign used in Michigan, 10x votes. So he announces the launch of this Centurion app, which basically the way he described it was just that you sign up for it and then you can identify people are going to vote for independence and claim them on the app.
Okay.
And so I was like, it didn't quite make sense to me how it worked. I was there with a friend of mine who also is a masochist and likes going to these things. And she's like, after hearing Parker speak, she was like, I gotta go for a smoke. And I was like, cool, let's go. And we were outside. And then you see a bunch of police cars show up and turn around, and there's a guy with an Elections Alberta lanyard talking to one of the organizers saying, we have reason to believe that your voter database. And Parker did not say anything about a database. It sounded to me like people would manually put in the voter info for people they knew, and then the people they knew would put it right. But it makes sense. That was actually a database they were searching from. And the guy from Elections Alberta said, this is, we believe that this is the list of electors, the province-wide list of electors only supposed to be in possession of political parties. And you guys need to cease and desist and stop using it. Later came out that the list of electors is basically salted by the chief electoral officer. So every version that's given to a different political party has a different list of fake names on it. So if it goes missing, you track down the fake names and who originally possessed that copy. So this was the Republican Party of Alberta, which is a separatist party. When I first heard someone supposed to belong to political parties, I was like, oh, someone from fucking UCP gave it to them. But it appears not. It was the Republican. I mean, Cameron Davies, the leader of the Republican Party of Alberta, is a former UCP guy who got into some trouble in Jason Kenney's leadership race and is now a separatist. Funny how that works. And so what were they using that information for? Well, I think it quite straightforwardly, like the organizers using it to identify people who are separatists, who could then be asked to identify people who are separatists and sort of build out this similar to how the act in the US to get people out to vote, Trump voters out to vote in Michigan. Now the problem is that anyone could sign up for this, right?
Yeah.
A lot of journalists signed up for it. I was too late to in the afternoon, and then they had already Elections Alberta got a like emergency injunction to take it down. Now it's unclear whether people who could access it before still can access it now. But the issue is survivors of domestic violence, for example, and I'm don't want to suggest that the separatist movement might have a disproportionate number of
Of course.
people who've done domestic violence, but it's a question worth asking, which I'd never suggest, no, but public officials. I mean, there were two demonstrations of the app that was done. The first one, which the Globe and Mail I believe tuned into, they put up Rachel Notley, the former NDP premier's info, had her address, her polling station, all that. And they did one with Jason Kenney as well, and there's a UCP staffer on the call, which the UCP has since admitted to, who it turns out actually has some bad blood with Jason Kenney, who didn't do anything about it, or told his superiors and they didn't do anything about it. So there's a very real risk that, people, both private citizens and public figures could be targeted with that information. And then there's also like the scams, of course, being able to sell it. And I mean, according to Parker, he bought the data. So he told the Globe and Mail that he bought it for $50,000 or something. And so I mean, there's also the technology he used they had to pay for, so he might have been conflating the two there. But it's unclear, the lawyer for the Berta made it clear, like, we know that this is the Republican Party of Alberta's list, but we don't have proof at this point. That may have since changed. They tend not to comment on investigations unless a journalist reports on it, and they have to. But basically, it's like we don't have proof at this point that it was provided to them by the Republican Party of Alberta. It could have been stolen, right? It could have, there are alternate explanations, but I mean, you can take a wild guess.
Sure, yeah. Of these clips, but just one final thing. We had St. Lotus in the chat saying, I'm seeing Daniel Smith and Nigel Farage tried monsters that are poised to grow beyond their grasp. I know a lot of people also have noted this sort of similarities or parallels between Brexit years ago now in the UK, which was also kind of initiated by a very neoliberal, it was initiated by a conservative prime minister, like in the idea of like, oh, we need to kind of throw a bone to the people that have been demanding this, and once it's defeated, we can move on. And just the way that it kind of that grew out of something that seemed to be a very fringe movement of wackos and weirdos and conspiracy theorists to all of a sudden having this level of like momentum and kind of mainstream popularity, and then eventually passing. And people are kind of like noting that even though this movement in Alberta similarly seems to be led by and populated by a bunch of kind of weirdos, not at all, that does not mean in any way that that's not going to be something that's going to continue to metastasize into something significant.
Especially if this referendum passes, and right, which is why it's important that people get out and defeat people are saying no to the 9, like the government initiated questions. I'm going to vote to abolish the Senate, personally, but and then there's this petition to ban coal mining in the Rockies that just hit its signature threshold in time. That Smith has said that will be on the ballot if they get enough. So we'll see if she actually does that, but definitely going to vote to ban coal mining from the mountains. And so what's interesting and what's different with Brexit. So people have compared Smith to Cameron too.
Not a total like 1-to-1 comparison, definitely.
Yeah, and nor is it a 1-to-1 comparison.
Her origin story very different from a guy that was much more of an establishment figure in David Cameron.
I don't. It's not 1-to-1 between Cameron and Annie either, but I think that's a closer analogy because this is a guy who, through hubris, was like, yeah, I'm going to unleash this, and what's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, Kenny didn't go as far as Cameron did, because he saw what happened to Cameron.
Yeah.
And Smith also saw what happened to Cameron. And I think a big difference is having these 9 other questions that uh, she's going to actively campaign for. Like she said, she's going to vote against proceeding with a referendum. And I think she probably will. But I don't think she'll be out there campaigning, with Jason Kenney and Corey Hogan and, Jen Gerson or whoever for the sort of conservative Remain campaign. I think she's just going to focus more on getting these 9 other referendum questions passed, because she's on the same side as separatists on those issues,
Yeah.
right? And it's a way for her to, at an arm's length, find common ground with them and to say, hey, look, I'm taking, we agree about the ends, our means are just and I think Farage is much more of an apt analogy there, also because Farage is just like a shameless opportunist.
Yes.
Like Danielle Smith is. Like, she's not a separatist, folks. Like the Alberta NDP keeps saying Danielle Smith, she's a separatist. So, and it's just like, no, it's worse. Reality is both more mundane and more disturbing. She's not anything. She's whatever. I mean, well, she's an oil gas lobbyist.
Yeah.
And a media personality and healthcare and education, privatizing lobbyist.
Yeah.
And everything she does is just really comes back to, I think, creating spectacle, which I don't think is the same as distraction. I don't think that separatism is a distraction like people are saying either. I think that this actually ties together a lot of various different projects.
Yeah. And this chameleonic ability to appeal to all these different people, or try to, as you pointed out, like you seem to see her as being someone that does have a lot of skill as a political figure, and that's exactly that's evidence. But
it's
of that, right?
It's the material interests that I think are what's driving this. Because even, I mean, again, separatism, I can't stress this enough. It all comes back, Alberta separatism, it all comes back to oil and gas. This entire concept of Western alienation that Alberta separatism is sort of an offshoot of. It's about oil. And then, you have these, and of course, and it's fundamentally at odds with First Nations treaty rights too. I think that's also an important detail to keep in mind, because these treaties are a bulwark against just unchecked fossil fuel production that the separatists want.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have all these other cultural grievances layered on top of it, like official bilingualism and, Senate reform, right? Like the old Reform Party and Canadian Alliance slogan was Triple E Senate, elected, efficient, and effective. Or no, elected, equal, and effective. But it's basically a U.S. style Senate where PEI has the same amount of seats as Ontario, and they're elected, and they, place constraints on the democratic will, which the unelected Senate does too, but in a different configuration. But
sure. But I think the main takeaway is that Smith's efforts to walk this delicate line between appeasing these people and also kind of maintaining her own position and not fully committing to this kind of separatist movement, it is causing a lot of infighting with these folks, and that's what we're going to look at next. With this clip from Unacceptable Fringe, 161,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Danielle Smith.
I think first thoughts is I do like his whole set here. He's got like a layer, and it's simultaneously you've got the toy thing, so you don't know what this guy could be doing, like 90s video game reviews or collecting old geek memorabilia. Or does he have some intel?
That's probably what he was doing before the pandemic.
Before he realized, actually, this is going to be way more successful for me if I focus on doing this stuff. I like that. That's my first thought right off the bat. But here we go. Here is Unacceptable Fringe.
Has made a lot of mistakes. In fact, yesterday she made a very large mistake. When it comes to the question on a question that we're facing on October 19th, I've often said that Premier Smith is talking out both sides of her mouth. She's sitting on both sides of the fence. She has given Albertans the Sovereignty Act, which is the ability for us to even hold the referendum, while also actively campaigning alongside the federal government and those like Jason Kenney, Naheed Nenshi,
pause for a sec.
Thomas LeCain.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Sovereignty Act has nothing to do with the referendum. I don't know what he's talking about.
No.
Yeah. It's the Sovereignty Act is, it does sort of lay the groundwork for Alberta independence. It was her first piece of legislation, and it basically says that the Alberta government can just not implement federal laws that it doesn't like, that, interfere in its jurisdiction, and it's nothing to do with a referendum on independence.
Okay.
Perhaps I'm being a tad pedantic, but pretty sloppy, unacceptable.
Yeah, we need to demand more from these kinds of guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basic they should want to stay, despite the fact that no real benefits have come to Alberta so far. And really all she's talked about are things that have never come to pass, like the Alberta Pension Plan, Alberta Police Force, and so on. The problem is that's finally starting to come to roost, that on the discussions of Mark Carney's recession.
Yeah, so no one wants the pension plan because the Canada Pension Plan gets good returns. It's like, in fact, there's basically a report Smith sort of ordered based on this traveling roadshow she did called Alberta Next, that from which the government initiated referendum questions in October are drawn from. And one of the things was a pension plan, because that's huge for separatists, right? Like having our own pension. And even the report came out and it was like, yeah, no one wants it. So we'll have a referendum on that when we can sell people on it, essentially. So no one wants it. It would be very counterproductive, I think, for the government to proceed with it. But anyways.
Okay. Well, good important caveat also.
People are starting to ask some real questions as to what's happening in Alberta, because Albertans are starting to wake up to the possibility or the idea that, hey, maybe now's the time to get out of here. Maybe this is not going to work. This country is nothing more than a failed experiment. But one thing we've seen from Jason Kenney...
Interestingly, I have been saying that, but from a completely different perspective as this gentleman, that this country is a failed experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the problem is that these guys isn't three mining companies in a trench coat, right?
Yeah,
Carney's making it.
No, it's a woke communist hellhole, authoritarian dictatorship.
Like they want what Canada is, but more so.
Yeah,
and Carney is doing what they want mostly.
Yeah.
Anyways,
like a lot of these right wing guys, it's like you're very close to grasping onto something, and then it slips through your fingers.
As well as Tom Lukasik and others, is the fear-mongering that, oh, your passports will be revoked, your pensions will be taken away, you won't be able to travel outside of the borders of Alberta. Well, the costs are just too darn high. The Canadian government will never let you leave.
Canadian passport? You're just talking about how you want to leave.
You want to get out of the failed experiment.
So why do you need a Canadian passport?
Yeah.
See, if these guys are smart, they'd be like, good, I want one.
Yeah, I want to separate from this woke communist country, but I still want full freedom of movement to go and travel throughout the country and go to all these different places, obviously.
Yeah.
Sounds real convincing that we should stay then, doesn't it? All those threats.
Does he have a Ghostbusters proton pack in the background, or is that just some unrelated machinery? I think it is a Ghostbusters proton pack. I would probably think this guy was kind of cool if he wasn't part of this weird extremist political movement.
Yeah, that would make sense. It would fit all the Funko Pops.
Yeah,
and
is there a name for this? It's like a Funko Pop, a Funko fascist, maybe, or something like that.
Mausoleum.
Yeah, no, for this specific type of guy, the guy with the toy collector basement who has a extremist right wing political movement that he's spearheading. There must be a name for this specific kind of person. Maybe it's just a conservative to these days. I don't know.
It is definitely a type of guy.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's an emerging type of guy over the last 15 years that we're increasingly having to deal with.
On the other side, well, I'm going to show you a little bit of a video because Danielle Smith had a press conference here, and she was asked about those who were trying to remove her from office. And it's very telling that the premier shows no signs of fear, no signs of
not going to happen.
Well, anxiety towards those in Alberta who gave her mandate, who sat out in the cold and garnered over 300,000 signatures to simply just say, yeah, everything's fine. It's going to be just fine. Take a look at this.
On the radio show, you had a message for the people who want to leave, you had a message for the people who want to remain, and you had a message for people who want to send a message. I'm going to add a fourth group if I could. And that fourth group is separatists who are challenging your leadership.
This is Rick Bell, by the way.
Okay.
Because they are upset with you. And many of them are voices on social media.
Right-wing tabloid columnists.
Some of them have actually endorsed someone to run for the UCP nomination in a Calgary riding where there will be a by-election. and they are vowing to sign up members to join the UCP in an attempt to pressure you and perhaps even get you to, even as some of them call it, kenny you, get rid of you. What is your message to them? And I'm going to tack on at the end because it's just yes or no. Do you believe we would get to keep a Canadian passport if we were the Republic of Alberta?
Okay, so in the first case, we are a big tent party. We are a number of people who come from different perspectives on this. I've been very clear about what my perspective is, and that I'm going to do everything I can to convince people that Canada can work. That's what I think my job is. I haven't been able to be successful with everyone yet, but I'm going to keep trying. And that, to me, is the most important thing we've got to focus on to October the 19th. There's always going to be discussions within internal parties. I see that Mark Carney is having a discussion internally within his party with 14 of his MPs unhappy with the MOU that he signed with Alberta, and one of them very loudly quitting because of it. And so you don't expect 100% agreement with everything you do, but if you're going to be a big tent coalition party, you've got to accommodate people's needs, and people's need to have a voice in this case. And I think my job is one of persuasion, and that's what I keep on doing. I'm not going to call anybody names. I'm not going to say they're wrong because they've got legitimate reasons for why they feel the way they do, but it's my job to give them hope again. And I simply don't know about the issue. Again, I just look at what happened in UK. Understanding is the UK, you only have one passport. You're not able to have a UK passport and a European passport, and that's the reason why they have to go through and use the long lineups and have border control and all of that, is that they just don't have the same rights of access that they did before.
Now, while Premier Smith says that she's going to respect Albertans' democratic rights, and I will give her credit for that, she is respecting our rights to hold a referendum. However, over the weekend, she did an interview that we showed on this channel from the Edmonton Journal, where she basically laid out that should the vote succeed in October, they were going to essentially kick the can down the road. They were going to draw it. It's a very lengthy legal process. It takes a lot of time. We have to consult with First Nations. We have to get the Canadian government to approve our question. Yeah. Guys, it's really more hassle than it's worth.
Yeah, it's just like the fact that it's like somewhat complicated to do this is just so frustrating. Like, you should just be able to sign a piece of paper and then the next day you're your own independent nation.
Why even have a referendum?
Yeah.
Just do it. Just separate.
Yeah, it should be easy. It's crazy that all this bureaucracy, this meaningless bureaucracy. Yeah. I'm also noticing there's a hoverboard as well. It's like a magic eye painting, this whole mise-en-scène in here. There's all kinds of things that keep emerging for me. That's right. This guy's got all the geek paraphernalia. It's really something else.
Yeah.
We should be coming together with some of these folks.
Again, honestly, Unacceptable Fringe, if you're watching this, I will come on your stream.
Yeah.
And I'll do it. I'll go on anyone's show.
Yeah, me too. I'll just shoot the shit about 80s movies or whatever. Like that.
Yeah. You guys can talk about Alien.
Yeah. This is how we can build bridges with these different constituencies. Maybe I can try and turn them into.
You can push Unacceptable Fringe left, I think.
Yeah, we can turn Unacceptable Fringe into a communist somehow.
Mongering. Well, if Danielle is going to get on the fear-mongering train, it's best that we highlight part of this interview, part of her question period during this interview, in which Danielle Smith talks about the startup costs for a new Republic of Alberta. And what she has to say here, despite the fact that it's a little bit longer of a clip, so bear with me, is really over-exagerating, and we're going to talk about that. First, let's take a look at the clip.
If you put on subtitles, could you get
subtitles? Sure, I can do that. Yep. Good idea. Thank you. Here's more Danielle Smith.
Of course, this is going to be off topic. As a politician, you know that every campaign has a set of promises that they make to the people whose vote they want, and this is a follow-up to a previous questioner. The independent side has offered all kinds of promises, and I just wanted your thoughts on those. You've talked about it a little bit already, but just your further. The economy is going to boom in a Republic of Alberta. There's going to be probably little or even no income tax in the Republic of Alberta. You'll be able to keep your Canadian passport. It'll be easier to get projects built, projects that have to go through Canada from the Republic. The cost will vastly outweigh the benefits, and this will just become really a bonanza of money flowing into Alberta once they have
this sounds pretty good.
of Alberta and not be part of Canada. I mean, how do you respond to that? Just in a bread and butter money way, because they're selling it as a great financial deal for Albertans.
Well, in my earlier answer, I think I came up with almost $400 billion worth of transitional costs that we'd have to assume, in addition to somewhere between $25 to $50 billion worth of annual costs. So I think people just need to look at the facts and see whether or not what is realistic. I can tell you from what I saw with the UK and Tears On, how the government is now trying to get into some kind of customs union. It didn't actually work out the way they anticipated. All of our trade agreements would have to be renegotiated. COSMA, it includes a comprehensive European agreement, it includes the TPP and every other trade agreement that has been negotiated. You don't get grandfathered in on those, and so that'll have a disruption in the economy. Presumably, we'd have tariffs on all of our goods that are being traded immediately. And the other thing that I think surprised UK residents is now they had to use the long line when they went to various European countries because they didn't get to the short line because they had to travel under a different passport. I think the folks who own homes in Spain were astonished that they had to sell them. So these are the kind of things that I think we have to be realistic about, and we have some indication based on the UK's 10-year experience that it certainly didn't pan out the way they expected, certainly did disrupt the trade with their allies, because if you reject your allies, then reject you. And so I think that we have to be very realistic about what it is that we'd be looking at for dollars and cents. That's why I have said that I support Remain. I hope others do too. We want to be very realistic about what kind of costs and inconveniences people would have in their life if they decided to vote otherwise. And if you want to send a message, as I hear so many do, then vote to give us the authority to change our immigration system, to tackle issues around the Senate, and appointing judges, and getting the federal government out of our provincial jurisdiction. That's the way you send a message. So that's going to be the deciding factor, I think, on 19th. And we'll have more about it when we do the full
Fringe has to say about
laundry
this.
list of things that I went through. It can't just be done overnight. We have to take some time with it. We want it out in time for people to have enough time to digest it before the vote, but there are significant startup costs and ongoing costs that I think haven't been factored into the discussion yet.
So Danielle Smith just dropped a bombshell. She claims that going independent would cost $400 billion upfront to build a credible government, plus another 50.
And I'm here to tell you, as a guy with a bunch of Funko Pops and a hoverboard and a proton pack in my basement, exactly why we would actually not have to pay anything to do this very complex political separatist maneuver. I've looked at the books. I've studied the numbers.
Right.
I've read several posts about this, and I feel very confident I'm actually going to be totally fine.
Well, he cites the Alberta Prosperity Project, which is like the leading separatist organization.
Okay, let's hear him out.
Draft fiscal plan that, the numbers are all.
Let's hear this.
Billion every single year to run it. Trade deals with tariffs would crush us. Chaos would be at the borders. Sounds really terrifying, right?
There's also a question of whether tariffs would crush Alberta or if the Trump administration would be like, no tariffs because we're secretly putting our thumb on the scale in this whole thing to disrupt and destroy Canada. But, that's a whole other question.
Yeah, I think that the Trump administration likes the idea of balkanizing Canada.
Yeah. And we didn't really get into it, but there's a lot of suspicion. There's elements of the Trump administration that have either, secretly promoting this, powerful people connected to the administration, people from the administration meeting with some of these separatists, like that has been happening. Right?
Yeah. Insane. Jeffrey Rath said he wants to be a U.S. territory like Puerto Rico. Oh, hey, your audience is going to meet Gotham.
Oh my goodness. Interloper.
Yeah. Gotham is a huge separatist. Actually, it's a disagreement that we have.
It's causing a lot of
but he's a separatist for
that's fine. Yeah.
And I think that's the good thing about this sort of referendum is it gives left Wexit time to
for sure.
mobilize.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, let's hear. I'll hear when he's into the numbers and the figures here.
All right.
Wrong. This is classic fear-mongering from someone who's supposed to be on our side. Don't forget that. Danielle Smith's playing both sides, as I said at the beginning of the video. She's talking.
I do find it funny that he describes anything other than full-throated support for Alberta separatism as fear-mongering. Any like efforts to be like, this might actually be difficult for this reason or this reason. It's just like, no, I don't accept it. Fear-mongering. Yeah, more fear-mongering.
He doesn't understand politics.
Yeah.
And the fact that come out and say I'm separatist because then she's gonna lose the next election, even with gerrymandering, perhaps. But she could just say I'm not a separatist, but I agree with you on everything except for separating. That's the way to do it. And in doing so, you can actually work Carney to reorient Canada along the lines envisioned by the Trump administration and separatists.
Yeah. Well, and this is the whole thing is just and people have been pointing this out. It's a common question, but these are a community in this country that feels like they've wanted. the whole convoy thing about anti-lockdown stuff and anti-public health measures and no more vaccine mandates. Well, you got all that. So like, what is the problem exactly? Like, what is the problem here going on that this man thinks Alberta separatism is going to solve? Unless it just comes down to, I don't want as many immigrants in the country, and if we separate, it's going to be easier for us to
which Carney's doing anyways, right? And so yeah, and I think with these new authoritarians, as I'm calling them, it's not enough to get what they want, right? Like after the Coots blockade, like Kenny and everyone else got rid of all the pandemic restrictions. But the problem is he didn't do it with enthusiasm, right? It's not that it's not accepting this isn't enough. You have to love it. Yeah. It has throated support for their agenda. But if you just pass their agenda, but you maybe are trying to play these political games and try to kind of soften the language, that's unacceptable to these folks, I guess. Yeah. Why don't we listen to a bit more of Unacceptable Fringe and then put on Berta Proud Dad? Because okay. All right, we'll do. Here's some more.
Fund sovereignty while also scaring Albertans away from the one thing that would actually give us real control. Let's take a look at her numbers for starters. And I've got them on the screen here. 400 billion. That's more than our entire political economy in a year. And when I'm talking about our GDP.
Ooh, he's talking political.
So where did it come from? There's no detailed independent report. She's just got a scary headline before the October referendum. Just like Jason Kenney when he was talking in his debate with Keith Wilson about our passports. Alberta Prosperity Project laid out a real costed plan in their Value of Freedom document. They peg startup costs somewhere around $2.8 to $5.7 billion. And based off of their numbers, running it through Alberta's GDP, Alberta statistics, and Ottawa
will only cost $1.
This is right there.
It's in my costed plan.
Yeah. It's like, it's exactly. I've read the numbers and can actually be totally fine.
Statistic. That's realistic. We already run our own healthcare, our own education, roads, policing, our own resource management. So we're not starting from zero. And that's the one thing Premier Smith doesn't talk about here. We're also taking control of what's already ours.
We already run all those things.
Yeah. That $50 billion a year extra, it's pure exaggeration. APP's plan shows that we replace federal services, defense, diplomacy, pensions for roughly $22 to $31 billion annually. We keep the massive chunk of money we've been sending to Ottawa, and Alberta's been the cash cow essentially for decades on as net contributors. Over $244 billion from 2007 to 2022 alone has been sent over to Ottawa. And she's talking about $400 billion up front. In good years, guys, we're sending roughly $14 to $47 billion more than we get back. That's our money that's funding pipelines that get blocked, equalization payments to provinces that attack our energy, and policies that hurt Alberta families. Keep in mind, we were also offered a line of credit from the United States.
No, they weren't. The one thing that's not the United States. They're asking the United States for a line of credit, and again, there are definitely elements within the Trump administration that are pro Alberta separatism, but I don't think the U.S. cares enough about balkanizing Canada. Like again, I think that the MAGA movement, the smarter people in it realize again, it's not about making Alberta independent. It's about balkanizing Canada, and what do we need to loan for that they're never going to be able to pay back? To do that, there are way more cost affordable ways to balkanize Canada than giving a loan to a bunch of fucking yahoos who have the support of like a quarter of the province.
Yeah, and just also this whole idea of sovereignty, like definitionally, Alberta would not be sovereign if it was independent in this way. It wouldn't even be independent. It would be a de facto 51st state, or like if you have a line of credit from the U.S. government, you're not sovereign. You're going to be a arm and a branch of the United States government. So it's
no, but once we pay it off, we'll be independent.
Oh, sure, yeah. That's how it works with the mafia boss. Yeah, just one loan, and then he's going to leave me alone.
Right. And so Canada sells 85% of its oil to the United States now. So what, we're going to sell 100% and then we'll be independent? Like what? Yeah. Again, it's like, what do like, again, the underlying like economic grievances are real.
Yep.
But the way in which they're being framed and given expression is, it's a joke.
Yeah. We'll finish this and then we'll go to the other one that you mentioned, the Free Alberta Dad, I believe you mentioned.
Berta Proud Dad.
Berta Proud Dad, excuse me. Yeah, okay. I get some of these folks confused.
Here. Independence doesn't add costs on top of everything. Leading. We bring that money, combine it with our existing $74 billion in provincial revenues, smart management of the Alberta pension plan, and continued resource development. And the APP projects 23 to 48 billion in surpluses in the first year alone. Surpluses, not debt.
I mean, that
means we could slash taxes dramatically, no GST, lower income taxes, more money in everybody's pocket while investing in better services. So this is kind of the problem when we look at what's happening with the premier and her statements. Keep in mind, Alberta's...
This is the problem with her saying there might be some complications to this, when really it would be easy and it would not cost money and have no issues whatsoever. That's the big problem as far as this guy sees it.
That's how it works. Haven't you seen Ghostbusters?
I mean, Ghostbusters, a very Reaganite right-wing movie. I love Ghostbusters, but it's all about like the federal government, the EPA, coming and stepping on the toes of these hard-working guys trying to make a buck, chasing ghosts with these unlicensed nuclear accelerators that they're walking around with. And you've got the goddamn schmucks and pencil necks down at the end and trying to have their rules and regulations about this kind of stuff and putting everyone in danger. So yeah, that tracks.
It actually is. It's a matter Alberta's separatism. I never thought of that.
GDP is roughly $360 to $373 billion between 2025 and 2026 estimates. Her numbers are meant to scare people, and that's exactly what it's going to do. Keep in mind, while this was being broadcast on CPAC, it's also being pumped out by the shill prostitute media to try and scare people into the fact that independence is a scary situation, that it's not beneficial for Albertans to decide to walk away from Canada. They should just simply put up with the fact that they can't afford food, they can't afford their mortgages, they can't afford clothing, they can't afford gasoline to get to their low-paying jobs that don't match the cost of living.
And once again, you have these very, very legitimate concerns about the economy and the way that gets used by people like this, whether he's like manipulating people or if he's been manipulated himself. But these real concerns that people have, and that gets funneled these completely fucked up, weirdo, reactionary directions. That's going to be the answer.
Okay, so we double oil and gas production, like the value of freedom. The document he keeps citing says, how is that going to, that'll make some people richer. It's not going to make most people richer, because seeing what big oil has been spending its tax cut savings on over the past 7 years, and it's automating jobs and giving themselves dividends. It's not like, and again, I mean, with the AI data centers that are being built clearly to boost fossil fuels, almost, I mean, the cost of utilities is going to go up,
it's the same kind of like right-wing magical thinking it's been going on for years. Like, we're living in a culture basically where this and right-wing economics has had this devastating effect on reality that people are living through. And these people they're describing the symptoms of living in this like extremely conservative neoliberal economic system, and the way that's had this effect on like cost of living and social services, public and housing, and they want to blame everything else other than that, and just say, if we need to do that even more, that's the actual solution. And once we persecute trans people enough, then if things are going to be affordable again. Once we kick out all these migrants, then things are going to be affordable again. Once we lower taxes even more for these like oil companies, then it's all going to trickle down, and we're all going to be sitting pretty. All the shit that these guys are describing are consequences of right-wing economic policies that we're still living with like throughout the Western world today. That's the ultimate tragedy of some of these guys.
Yeah. And again, the content creators, it is an interesting question whether they're being manipulated or they are manipulating people, but whether they themselves are being manipulated by algorithms. It's like, and you could say the same of Smith, right? Like, I think that she was, shaped, and she also played a role in shaping the broader political culture around her. So it's not, and these guys have, they can Fringe can read a book if he wants to, right?
Yeah, this information is available. But I'm just I'm looking too, just like at this freeze frame too, where he's talking about low paying jobs that don't match the cost of living. Curious to know whether this guy feels about like the minimum wage and whether that should go up. Because a lot of these same folks are often complaining about just that. Oh, you wanted a higher minimum wage? Well, now we have got robots at all the fast food restaurants. Suck it, leftists.
So get a real job, being a streamer.
Like that's the thing. It's like, it's completely contradictory.
No offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I do have to leave in like half an hour. So do you want to put on the other video?
Okay. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Because so basically, unacceptable Fringe, very mad.
Yeah. I like his toys. That's cool. But
yeah, he's got a better setup. Berta Proud Dad, but Berta Proud Dad is like the one with Chris Scott, where they talk about he talks about his beef with unacceptable Fringe, and then fuck, what's it? Hold on, I texted it to you. The really happening in Alberta live with Chris Scott.
Okay, let me just see here.
Oh, there it is. It's a stream from like a month ago.
It's on the screen right now. Which one are we talking about?
It's a stream. What's really in Alberta? Here, I'll send it to you in the chat.
Oh yeah, please do. Thank you.
We're not gonna watch the whole thing because it's like an hour and a half. But,
okay. Thanks.
But like Berta Proud Dad is like an affable figure. I would say, sort of like there we go. Man of simple tastes.
Do you have like a timestamp for what you want to look at here?
Yeah, I mean he kind of starts with
Oh, this is nice. Little stinger here.
So he's starting with unacceptable Fringe talking shit about him.
Okay.
So this is
why
the
don't we start
there? Yeah, and then
so Berta Proud Dad is more of like a Daniel Smith defender.
Yeah, he's Daniel Smith, and Chris Scott is an interesting sort of intermediary. He runs the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, which like refused to abide by any pandemic measures, and then he became a separatist.
Okay.
Hosted a bunch of separatist events there, like the Canada Day event I went to last year. That was at his cafe. He spoke, and then so maybe let's watch a bit of the beginning, and then half an hour in is when Fringe comes on the stream.
Okay. I mean, just talking about this with you, I can't help but still be fascinated with the ways that COVID like these fractures that were already in U.S. society, and how it just like an accelerant that got poured on all these kind of like growing fractures and conflicts, and completely accelerated us into this whatever crazy world that we're living in now.
Yeah.
I'm continually interested in that.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
So Berta Proud Dad's on the right. Chris Scott is on the left. Dr. Maggot, I probably was. I mean, it wasn't in a room; it was outside. But he must have been there. I mean, what else is he gonna do? So he's probably around. But it was hosted by Chris left.
Okay.
Watching Fringe.
Whoa.
When you look at Renew Alberta on and said, "Oh, I'm
What?
Saying that my Let's Talk Alberta fundraiser, we're just going to be pocketing the money." And I nice super chat to support him.
Sorry, just an aside here. You can see it's interesting to see other people's algorithms. The algorithm of the separatist wackos and all the recommended videos that they're getting as they completely poison their minds.
That's my algorithm increasingly.
Yeah, they're doing it for purposes though, poisoning your mind.
I watch. There's lots of people doing that. I'm assuming he's making money for doing the work. Super proud of him for doing that. But I just wanted to point out to him that he did.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Could you get the subtitles on?
Oh yeah, thanks for the reminder.
He's making money for work. Super proud of him for doing that. But I just wanted to point out to him that he did exactly the same thing to me just now. That I do something he did to him, and it kind of upset me a little bit.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. I like Unacceptable Fringe.
Oh wait, I can hear it.
Yeah,
now.
Anyway, it just goes
to
to
talk to them, but
it just goes to show people should probably talk to each other before they make claims like this.
You know what? I agree. I agree.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Lawrence. You know this already. What Facebook monetization is like. It's not the greatest.
No.
People don't send me 10, 5, 20 bucks, whatever, on YouTube or
Must
Facebook.
Be nice.
They don't send me stickers. I'm watching this. I'm watching the
this
work.
Is classic,
legit
right? They're
work that
accusing each other,
and he should be paid for it. I'm watching the work, and I'm watching him be paid. I have a lot of work that I don't get paid for, as do you. Let's Talk Alberta 100%. Is a perfect example. When we started that, I had money that I don't have to pay for it, right? And
I know you did. You and I had conversations, off camera at length about.
So I mean, there
the
is
resources,
polling out
the time
that shows that the demographic most likely to support are high income people who have trouble paying their bills.
Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Away from home, time away from your business that you're actually putting into it. And I've seen it firsthand, right? Like I've talked at a couple of your events and I've seen the effort, the amount that goes in behind it. Like I'll be perfectly honest, I show up and I speak, right? But you're there getting things done. You've assembled a team. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and it all, the room you're in is not free, right? The room you're speaking is free. Like, this is the thing is, that's unfortunate.
I'm just going to send him an invite. Oh, wait, I got to pay. You have to pay a little bit of money to do I don't do the YouTube thing. So this is all new to me.
YouTube's awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
All my people that are watching me on YouTube right now, appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are wicked doing this. That's not how I figured we were going to start the show, but you know what?
There's a certain earnestness with Berta Proud Dad.
This is what?
A certain earnestness that he has that I don't like. I do think he did this shit.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, do. I think they're being quite sincere. A lot of these folks.
You should get him on TRS.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll have my chat.
At the end of the day, it's just two guys shit on a Saturday night, right? Friday night.
At the end of the day, it's just two guys shooting the shit on Wednesday afternoon, right here.
They're just like us.
Exactly. Like this, funnily, like, yes, we actually do have more in common than the actual ultra powerful people that do control this country. These guys are confused. They're like politically confused in many ways. Yeah.
They messed up here.
I'm such a dink.
What did you say?
Sorry, I'm just like, if I just had to chuckle at that, I don't think we don't hear people say dink very much these days.
No, you really don't.
Yeah. That was really like a elementary school thing for me, I think.
Yeah, very 90s coded.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm not being rude. I just I enjoy being nice to people when they've offended me. It makes me feel good.
It's unfortunate because you know what, I do like Unacceptable Fringe, and this is the thing though. Okay, so I for day 2, right? So I want to I'll get to that. Well, wait, what did you say? Okay.
Just publishing my credit card number for Facebook to see.
Oh, good. What I do. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So anyway, continue.
But emotions are running high. Okay, and like for instance, like there's somebody over in the movement that said today that I used the premier talking, whatever, and maybe I pulled the video down, and then afterwards he went out and called me whatever he called me because I pulled the video down. But the last thing I want right now is I don't want people to get so angry that we split up our movement.
Maybe give us some money, right? This is what I'm talking about. Fingers.
You, not your viewers.
I get it, but everybody's pointing fingers, and everybody's a faction now, and I told you about these guys, but come listen to us.
It's like the ending of Reservoir Dogs.
Come on, stop it.
Yeah.
Everyone's paranoid with like the thing. Everyone's paranoid.
Oh, it's awesome.
No one trusts each other. We're all very tired.
So I like the work he's doing.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. I'm literally responding to what I saw, and someone sent me the clip. Derek's concerned that people are to monetize Alberta independence, right?
Yeah.
Folks,
why wouldn't they?
Those of you who know me know me.
Isn't that kind of what it's all about?
Send me money to do specific things like town halls or pro or fuel specials because they're going to get an itemized receipt of everything I spend. They support what I'm doing because they know I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. Right? They trust me. They know that my heart is in, and my goal is to make things better. Right?
Yeah.
And I get it. There's a lot of people out there aren't like that. That Dutch YouTube channel, right? That Dutch YouTube channel making likely dollars, misinforming people about Alberta independence, like literally lying and making ridiculous claims of Alberta independence, make money. And
the thing is Fringe was actually put into that AI deep fake or whatever they were trying to call it. And I couldn't believe the real guy. I even did a video. I was like, I actually know who this guy is, and he did work, right? And but today, I guess my whole point was today's a very the past 48 hours has been a very frustrating time for a lot of people. And this is what I love about you, Chris, is like I've called you and I'm like, man, this is fucking bullshit. Like I have, and you've been like, Lawrence, calm down, just relax, and that's what I was. You have that way about you where it's just stay the course, steer the ship, just stay on mission, right? And I hear that sometimes. And like today, when I took down that video, it was like you did me because you were busy doing what you were doing. But I was like, man, like I really need to do as a content, and it's all about learning. And you know what?
I'm
I was
often
frustrated
saying that as well.
Zone, and it is what it is.
True.
So I'm not excusing anybody's actions. I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth. But all I can do for myself is apologize for being a dipshit sometimes and just move on and carry on.
You love to see that?
Yeah, and that's
Right.
what we got to do. Not everyone's going to.
Yeah. Do you want to fast forward 31 minutes in? Because then they get
Acceptable Fringe joins. Okay, let's see this.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is the real fireworks.
He got the message. Should we bring him on or make him wait in the back?
No, you bring him on, 100%.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that seems to be the takeaway,
Hey, buddy.
Professor Shaman.
Hey, what the hell is this?
This is the Chris and Berta
Yeah,
show
they are
tonight.
stupid. Well,
How are
Acceptable
you?
Fringe, I don't know.
Wait, what happened in the stream? Everybody thinks that I hate
just
you
like
guys now.
a dumb guy.
No, we don't hate you. We don't hate you. Oh, I don't hate you. I watch you quite regularly, actually.
No, everybody thought
You're not wrong, Walter. You're
at my speech about talking about Let's Talk Alberta and everything else. Everybody thought I hated Chris because I was talking about all the different factions with this data leak and Renew Alberta and everything else. Everybody's, what are you doing, Fringe? And
you do have your own Fringe brigade, though. They did come over here.
They do.
I do like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they came and commented. Yeah, Steve was texting me.
But that is good to have that. That is good. Like the thing is like I don't know what anybody was expecting.
Do they say racist, transphobic shit? Yeah. Oh yeah. There's this other guy, Moose on the Loose, who's he's not really a separatist. He's more of just like I think to sort of shepherd like the Conservative Party. I mean, that guy just hates Indigenous people so much, right? And but they're of course they think that like the suspected unmarked graves at residential schools were fake, that being trans is like an ideology, because they're dumb.
Yeah.
I don't think like, you know what I mean? If you're a trans person who goes to a separatist event and you're down with the cause, I think most people there would be quite few and maybe I don't know if they'd use your pronoun. They might, unless your pronoun is like Zer or something, right? And then they would be like, but why would you support Alberta independence? I don't know. I mean, there's some crazy people out there, but yeah, they're problematic. I would say problematic faves.
Yeah, I think that's to say the least of it. Yeah.
Pudding wrestling match.
All right,
I don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know, man.
But yeah, it's like you see the kind of earnestness, and you can be like, oh, these guys don't seem so bad. But then you realize some of the really reactionary movement. It's not all about financial sovereignty and cash transfers to Ottawa and this kind of stuff. Sadly, because again, we talked about these guys are talking about very problems. But ultimately, like their actual, like the scapegoats that they've created for this are just completely, totally way off base from the actual economic reality that's impacting everyone and preventing any kind of like class solidarity from emerging.
For that.
Yeah.
Like I think the three of us were all in a room shaking hands and hugging about 2.5 weeks ago. So
you know what? I got it this week when I was to John Bolton. I covered a video on this Renew Alberta thing that happened. Because
not that John Bolton,
and I didn't know.
Okay,
John had sat down.
I was
with
confused at first,
right? Like he did an interview with a guy, and while his video was being uploaded, apparently I was making a video talking about the promotional videos that Renew Alberta had put out, and I says this is totally out of whack. Like, why are we talking about the Westminster system? That's not independence. And all of a sudden, everybody again, as soon as you start talking about another YouTuber, and I didn't even mention John Bolton because I didn't know he had the video. People in my comments are like, "Do you hate John Bolton? He put out a video about this." I didn't say anything about John Bolton. Why is like everybody just thinks we all hate each other? That's why I said we need to do like a big like W style like fake hatred thing where we're all like, screw you, I don't like you. And
I did that once. We could
be in the same room, set up the studio so we're close to each other, and then fight.
Control
and then
the narrative.
I'd come in from the Fringe studio and we could start fighting in there, and yours thing.
Yeah,
Lawrence come in.
Totally like a street fight. It would be perfect. Yeah, and they all turn around, surprise.
Well, we can all just make it AI. We can make it AI because they accuse
don't talk to
some
me
of
about
us
AI.
of that.
Apparently,
you are,
not
of
real,
course.
by the way. It's all AI. It's better than you.
Let's clear the air on
You
this.
can automate this whole thing.
Yeah.
The reason I commented on your YouTube stream was because you guys were talking about needing other organizations. Don't send them your money. Only support the referendum. And then the comment was made because the money is going to go in their pockets.
Technomancy's imposter syndrome about doing anything, and I watch these guys just spew it out. Seriously, if you're like feel weird or self-conscious about your ability to, talk about news and politics or to get involved in this kind of thing, you absolutely should not. Believe me, you're okay. These men do not have imposter syndrome whatsoever.
Right. And
it's like Yates said, right? The best lack all can, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.
That's right. These Albertan chuds don't make up my week is going to be ruined. I know I'm going to be ruminating on this all night.
Would assume that because that happens all the time. In this case, I'll tell you exactly my position on this. So this referendum is the single most important thing that Alberta will face in the foreseeable future, for sure. It is incredibly important. The referendum is almost inevitable. If the Premier drops the writ on the referendum, it's going to happen. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to fund it. The government will do it. What we do need to do is get every single Albertan in a room and talk about these things. And I explained to Lawrence why I started Let's Talk Alberta. It was because APP went into hibernation. I didn't agree with that. I think education is the most important aspect of all this. And rather than fighting with people, they do their thing, I do my thing. And now what I've tried to do is set up enough town halls that we can, as people, specifically APP and other groups. And if we can, it's going to be tricky because I'm walking a very fine line between political expression and town halls and advertising. We cannot advertise for anything. We can express ourselves in town halls. So we got to be careful that's why I'm doing this. And we don't have backing from Trump, as many people might think. We don't get $20,000 a month, Derek. As
you guys aren't paid Russians. I mean, we've been told we're Russians, Russian AI bots. So
yeah, I did do an AI photo of me on a private.
I mean, there's a lot of hysteria around the Russia stuff. All to learn that Russia was just like, hey, this stuff's going on in Canada. Yeah, let's throw a couple of rubles into promoting some of this stuff.
Like Tenet Media was a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, I think it's important, and you know this, that this is a domestic movement, right?
Yeah,
like that's based domestic disinformation that just being amplified by actors for their own purposes. But
I think this is a domestic movement that probably other countries around the world view as a way to, this can like destabilize this like movement that's happening domestically. This is exactly what America does around the world when it does like color revolutions elsewhere, is they seek out legitimate, organic, domestic movements, and they put funding into it and they promote one side or sometimes both sides because it has a destabilizing effect, and that can benefit America, can benefit all kinds of other countries. But I think that is an important distinction to make whenever we talk about this, whether we have America doing that around the world or when we talk about US influence or Russian influence or anything. It's just amplifying things that are going on completely organically because it has an effect that can destabilize this country and that can benefit them in some ways. Not that it's entirely 100% this like foreign creation that everyone involved is a part of.
This is though Berta. This is a good bit he's talking about actually.
Okay, here we go.
And said I was going to Russia and actually did run with it. It was wild.
There you go.
Yeah.
I did a video walking around a Cessna Cardinal talking about how the fuel tanks used to be for fuel, but now they're for chems, so we can spray it and take out entire provinces, and people believed it. And I got death threats.
Unreal. Unbelievable.
It's great.
So
that's what Alberta's about.
Okay. So what I was trying to allude to is what we've noticed, again, when you look at the Freedom Convoy, and I try to use that as the primary example, when you look at what went down there, it first started with a bunch of people being gobsmacked that the streets were full of all of these trucks, that it was really much larger than anybody anticipated. Even though we saw the lines on the highways, we saw everything leading up there. But then all of a sudden, when they arrived in Ottawa, it was announced how much the Give, Send, Go, or the GoFundMe, or whatever they were using at the time, had achieved. And that was something like $20 million. And they started all of a sudden saying, well, it came from Americans, it came from everywhere else. And before you know it, it all became about the money.
I mean, a lot of it
did. You had bad actors showing up again, the Ben Dichters, the other people showing up. We know what we're doing with
more came from where?
Like I forget. It's either the majority of money came from Americans, but the majority of owners were Canadian, or the reverse. But either way, it wasn't like a majority. Like
yeah.
Anyways,
let's hear what else he has to say.
There's money, and before you know it, some people got away with it, some people got prosecuted, and some people still have their lives ruined by it. Now, I'm seeing a similar pattern when you look at what happened with Centurion and bad actors. And I'm not going to label people within Centurion or any of that stuff. There's an investigation going on, so I'm not going to say who's doing what or who is what until that is concluded. However, people have been emailing me over the last 24 hours saying, can you believe, David Parker's a part of this, or do you know Marty up north is a part of this, or do you know, Cam Davies was maybe a part of it? And I go, guys, first off, Marty's a big boy. He can talk to whoever he wants and do whatever he likes. He made his own decision, right? When you look at David Parker or Cam Davies, I say both of those guys are friends. They worked for the government, in the government, and have both been fined for doing exactly what is being talked about in this data leak. So let the investigation do whatever it's going to find out who did what. But is anybody really surprised? And that's the past behavior.
No.
So what I was mostly pointing out to when I was talking about giving money,
I love
it was more things like Renew Alberta.
Immediately through
again, because with John Bolton. reached out to me and said, I interviewed the guy. He's a pastor. He says, I don't know what to make of it, but he's asking people for donations. And he says, and I asked him, where do those donations go? And he says, well, I mean, if I got to drive around Alberta, or I got to go to speaking events, or go and do anything else. And John says, I get a little leery about those things because I want to know, how much are you getting off of this? What is the grift, a la Maxime Bernier, and what happens with any money that's left over when this is all said and done? And I'll leave that interview to John, because again, I haven't seen the whole, I don't know how that was answered. But my concern is when you look at the Thomas Lukaszik's, who have, what is it, $150,000, $160,000 sitting out in limbo, that we donated it to charities. Oh, good, then you should have a receipt.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah, well, we're not going to disclose that or give that to anybody. Why not? Like, you ran a referendum, you should have to legally disclose where all that is, full transparency. And if you want to audit,
have to do that.
Stay Free Alberta, if you want to audit APP, if you want to go after
Lukaszik,
Centurion or whoever, then what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Provided all,
you should have to do all sides of the spectrum, not just them. And the biggest problem
that would be actually interesting to learn more about. Should I keep going? I know you have to go soon, Jeremy. So do you think have we covered all the ground here, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so, right? Basically, it's not, because that's the thing in America, and this is what is in, that I think even the separatists are very, I think, Canadian in disposition, is, they just quash the beef. Whoever they go on each other's street.
I respect it.
They just talk about things of common interest. You see in the States, like accusing each other of being like pedophiles, and I haven't seen that quite yet from the separatists here. Because again, I think as time passes and as Smith leans heavily into the culture war politics, also going to be like, well, we agreed with Smith on literally 90 to 95% of like the issues that we're voting for in October, right? And Dr. Maggot asked a very good question. These guys' positions on the ostrich genocide. And obviously, they're against the ostrich genocide.
Yeah,
like 100. I haven't heard them speak about it, but how could they not be?
It's the most central political issue of our time, so I would hope
it
so.
Is,
yeah.
It is. It's actually one reason why we need to separate. There will be no ostriches, diseased ostriches called in an independent Alberta.
We're just going to allow these diseases roam free.
Yeah, that's a cost that isn't being accounted for by the elites. Is the money we're going to save on keeping ostriches alive. Anyways, I do have to run. This has been a blast. I would love to do like a recurring segment where we just
you're welcome anytime, Jeremy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna keep watching it, and if I find something funny, I'll and maybe I won't just we'll focus more on like.
Yeah, I liked the banter too, though. That was fun.
Yeah. No, these guys are great. I think they're a lot of fun. I would love to try and get Berta Proudad on.
Good. I'm not opposed to it.
You might do it.
Yeah.
We can tell him about, we agree with you about Alberta, but like, what are your thoughts on what's happening in Palestine? Like,
yeah.
Kind of like,
I'm sure got some interesting
Alberta,
thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you as always. I'm going to see you very soon, actually, IRL. So looking forward to that.
I'll see you before then.
Yeah, I'm going to see you in a couple days.
Bringing a travel mic, so maybe we can connect and stream while I'm in Toronto.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.